even though he is on the play because of being the first seed.
All right, there's a look at the players and the decks. Monty, are you going to give this one to Ian Robb? What do you think?
Okay, well, my heart says Matt Nass and Domain Overlords, but my head says that I shouldn't go against Frank Larson and his numbers, so I'm going to go with the mono red deck.
All right, what about you, Riley?
Well, Maria, I'm gonna say Matt Nass, and I'm gonna say Matt Nass for a very, very good reason, right? It's because he is the underdog, and if he wins, I will be able to come back and say, look at that, I was so smart, buggy your numbers, I know what I'm talking about, biggest brain in the building, absolutely, Matt Nass, 100%, here he comes till the final whistle blows. Let's go, Matt Nass.
All right, let's find out what happens. It's time for our first quarterfinal. I'm gonna pass it on over to Marshall and Paul with the call.
Thank you, Maria. Welcome to the booth here for our first quarterfinal. That's Paul Chian. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. Thank you so much for joining us. We've got Standard in the top 8, Paul, and we have our 1 seed coming in, Matt Nass, playing against the 8 seed with Ian Robb. 2 completely different decks facing off here. We've got mono red in the hands of Ian Robb and Domain Overlords for Nass.
Yeah, and just kind of going into this, the Domain Overlords really doesn't want to see the Gruul Mouse deck. That was kind of the deck that was expected as the aggro deck of choice, but Mono Red might be an even worse matchup here. We did see Monty talking about those Sunspine Lynxes in the sideboard, and it's going to be devastating here in this matchup because Matt's primary game plan against the various red aggressive decks is stabilize the board, play an Overlord, play Zur, get lifelink and attack and turn things around, but you're not going to be able to do that as consistently with the 4 copies of the Sunspine Lynx.
Interesting matchup from a player standpoint as well. This is Matt Nass's 3rd top finish, and he is a grizzled veteran of the professional Magic scene as well. He has 13 Grand Prix top 8s with 5 titles going back years and years.
Like, I hit horrific matchups.
But on the other side, it's Ian Robb's first Pro Tour, as you may imagine, first top finish as well.
Yeah, just an incredible ride for Ian, just qualifying for this event, just kind of almost on a whim, kind of a last-second shot, and managed to get there. And even after he won his final round, he didn't even think he made the top 8. A lot of people thought it was going to be Ken Yukihiro based on his tie breaks, but basically all of Ian's opponents won their matches, and all of Ken's opponents lost their matches, and he was able to squeak in here at number 8. But being on the draw here on a mulligan to 5, really rough.
Really tough start here for Ian. Does have the Heartfire Hero to start things off, however. Matt has just the 2 lands. Ominously sitting there, I will say. Ride's End is something that has become very important.
Go to combat. Attack.
No blocks.
Yep. Take 2, go to 18. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, Matt, savvy at the paper game, says no blocks does not mean I'm going to take damage.
Yeah, the only thing here is Matt's maybe trying to get Ian to run out of Monstrous Rage first,
Take 1, go
but
to
that's
19.
not going to happen here. Matt just taking the damage
combat.
here.
Yeah.
No, I'll pass.
He's got another hero to follow up, and the Monastery Swift Spear stays on the battlefield after Ride's End takes out the original hero.
And a pair of Screaming Nemesis in Ian Robb's hand, but does need land number 3 here to run them out.
Oh, and it's a
he
mountain.
Finds it.
That's
finds
big.
That is very, very big. Screaming Nemesis, just a very powerful card. If Ian can ever get into a situation where you can run out the Screaming Nemesis and maybe fire off his own burn spell on the Nemesis to get Screaming Nemesis' other ability on the stack, that means Matt Nass can't actually gain life for the rest of the game. So that's going to be something that you could potentially see play a factor in this matchup.
Okay, everything coming into the red zone here. Does Matt Nass have another answer? Yes.
17.
Sure.
I'll pass
And that will cleanly deal with the Nemesis. There's no, I don't know if it's officially an emblem, but it doesn't get, the players can't gain life for the rest of the game thing.
Right, and now this is Overlord of the Mistmores here. 2 fantastic blockers. If Matt Nass can find an untapped land next turn, can actually just go Zur into activate Overlord of the Mistmores, attack for 7, and gain 7 life.
Nemesis.
Okay.
So there is another
Start
Screaming
combat.
Nemesis, but it's a land in hand here for Ian.
Sure.
14.
And Matt Nass being careful not to damage that Nemesis on his own. There are ways for Ian to do it on his side. Is this an untapped land?
No, that looks like a Lush Portico.
Oh,
So it is
tap land.
Yeah, it is tap. Now you can still just run out a Xur here,
He kept that card on top very
Right.
quickly, though.
and he's got a backup Xur in hand here. So depending on what he kept on top, let's say he kept a Ride Zen on top, I can certainly see him just run out up the Beanstalk here if he does have a removal spell in hand. He's sitting at a healthy 14 life here, so right now he can afford to just take 3 damage from the Screaming Nemesis, keep the flying tokens back for the 1-drops that are currently in play for Ian Robb.
Is Matt perhaps still resolving that Surveil trigger?
Oh, Mill.
Yes, he
Oh,
was.
yeah? Okay.
And he's just going to play Xur here.
Yeah, just another great blocker here, playing it a little bit safe. And, Ian's deck just doesn't have a ton of ways to kill Xur. There's Witchstalker Frenzy, but he's hellbent right now, no cards in hand.
Uh-oh, is Matt thinking about an attack?
I'll pass.
He's just going to pass. Okay,
Yeah.
down to 2. This is big draw step here for Ian. If he can find a way to damage his own Screaming Nemesis, he could potentially shut off life gain going forward.
Or mana. Okay.
Go to combat, target is twice. Drew Valiant, I'll give double strike and trample.
Manifold Mouse.
Yeah, but this is
That's
just
full
not
cost.
enough.
No.
Matt Nass will be able to stabilize here and attack for a ton of damage and gain all of the life back, meanwhile having an entire army of flying creatures as well.
Right, Ian has no cards in hand, right? So this is just a simple put together the pieces of the puzzle thing for Matt Nass. But as you mentioned, besides the Overlord, he also has the ley line ready to go.
Yeah, this is just an attack for what, 13? And you get to gain 13 life? The mono red deck is simply just not capable of coming back from that
Sure,
point.
I'll take
7.
7 down to 7.
I'll have to.
He's going to be at 20 after this.
Just
reset.
start over the game here.
Yeah, hey, that got a little out of hand. Let's just start over again. And Matt Nass has the green light here. There's just nothing that Ian can do.
Ian just doesn't even have enough blockers here to get that Leyland Binding out of the way. Can probably even just attack with the flyers here, but maybe not necessary.
Think about what else.
You're going to get 2 extra tokens here, 2 on flyers here, and you're going up to 20.
It's a 7/7, right?
Yeah, so
I was gonna
total.
see it's no point playing this.
Yeah, and Ian Robb says, okay, I've seen enough of this. I know how this one
Yeah,
ends.
I
And that is a
Yeah,
Pretty sure I can get a
critical
monstrous at
game
that
1
point.
victory here for Matt Nass. We are
point.
playing best 3 out of
Yeah,
5
I don't
here
even
in the
know. Am I
top
7?
8.
I go kept.
And what that means is the players don't
get a
sideboard
Xur, so
until
wait.
the 3rd game and
Okay,
any
I just wanted to
subsequent
make sure.
games after that. So this is effectively another game 1 as far as the decks go.
Right, and now Ian Robb gets to be on the play here. Matt Nass did think this was not a favorable matchup here. And being on the play with a full grip of cards this time. A very good shot here for Ian to be able to tie things up here going into game 3.
Okay.
Mountain, I'll attack and trigger. You can take 1, go to 18. Post combat, cast Manifold Mouse, and I'll pass.
Another good curve out here from Ian.
And taking a look at Matt Nass's hand, does have 2 copies of Temporary Lockdown in hand. So that is really, really strong. So Ian has to be mindful of the fact that that exists. If he has something like a Screaming Nemesis, that's the type of
I'll
creature
play
you want to
Beans.
play. But Ian doesn't have that. But
Yep.
he has 2 Monstrous Rages. That's a lot of damage
It's a lot
here
of damage.
with the Manifold Mouse in play. It's 5, 6,
That's
12,
done.
13,
Okay.
14 damage here.
Yeah, Ian's doing some math to figure out how much he can get in for right now.
Yeah, and the thing is, you have the Emberheart Challenger, but it's kind of rough because Matt Nass's best play next turn is Temporary Lockdown. Do you want to keep this Challenger back to be able to have something to play post-Lockdown? For example, you can just go Monstrous Rage Manifold Mouse and pump the Hired Lizard. That
Sure.
still gets in for a ton of damage. And on the following turn, you still have the ability to go Challenger plus Monstrous
this
Rage
double
and
strike.
get in for a
Yeah.
lot.
Trigger and before double strike on Monstrous Rage.
Okay.
So you're at 17.
So there's one of the
and
Monstrous
17
Rages.
from
Does
the
Ian
trigger,
Robb
and
take
then I'm
that
going to
middle
give a
ground?
counter.
Yeah,
Okay.
makes a lot of
So
sense
you
here.
take
Great sequencing here from
4,
Ian
8,
Robb.
10, 11 this turn, so you'll be at 7.
4, 8,
Oh,
You'll be at 6.
and then, oh yeah,
Yep.
11 total
Yep.
this turn.
Yep.
Oh,
you go
this
to
turn.
7.
Okay, so
Pass.
Agreed.
Yep, pass.
down to 7.
So not quite lethal next turn, right? You attack for, you have a 2/2, you give it Monstrous Rage. It does have Prowess, which turns it into a 3/3, and then Monstrous Rage deals 3 damage, so that's 6. That would get Matt Nass down to 1 if he does run out a temporary lockdown this turn.
Which he almost certainly will.
Yeah, then at which point you're at 1 against the mono red deck, right? Burst, lightning, lightning strike, any burn spell off the top can win you the game.
And Matt's going to be at least a couple of turns away from being able to gain life or set up anything like it. So really nice sequencing here from Ian Robb. He finds Heartfire Hero off the top of the library.
Yeah, given that Matt's tapped out, I just imagine the play here is just Challenger into Monstrous Rage here, get Matt Nass down to 1.
Monstrous Rage, True Prowess and Valiant. Okay, roll.
Can't play that one.
And then I'll attack you for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right, because it's 3,
yep,
4, 5, 6.
agreed.
Yep, you got a 1.
Down to 1.
So now you're at 1 against the mono red deck, and you don't have any life gain, at least on the docket currently. This is
It's
precarious
kinda
to
tough.
say the least.
Yeah, so Matt Nass has a couple of options here. You can go
he drew
temporary
Ride's
lockdown. You can go temporary lockdown to kill the creature. You can also go up the Beanstalk plus Ride's End. You can also play Overlord of the Mistmoors, but the Emberheart Challenger does have trample. So having 2 2/1 flyers, you just die. You're just dead on board if you go with something like that.
I'll play beans. Play land. All right.
I think he will get a card off of it. This is desperation time.
Ian
though,
has
for
so
Matt
many
Nass.
draws here. Rockface Village, Burn Spell, Haste Creature. Didn't find it.
He didn't.
Wow. So this is actually really interesting for Ian. You can either play Heartfire Hero or just activate Soulstone Sanctuary. And then, you know, Matt is aware of this because if you just draw land number 5, you can just go hero, kill my own hero, deal 1 damage to you.
Oh, sure. So what can Matt do?
Well, lockdown's certainly not going to work. You can just hard cast Overlord of the Hauntwoods.
Yes.
If you have the mana for that. You can also go Overlord of the Mistmoors.
And give yourself a couple of blockers.
Just have a couple of blockers here, but Ian's got to be a
this is
huge favorite here.
Precarious to say the least.
So many great cards that just win Ian the game on the spot.
Impending draw.
Yeah, he's going to go for Overlord. This also gives him the option.
Oh, this is actually just lethal. You activate the Soulstone Sanctuary, play Heartfire Hero, attack. It has Vigilance, and then Witchtalker Frenzy gets a discount of 1.
Oh,
So you go for the win that way.
I'll draw.
Yeah.
nice.
Fire Hero.
Yep.
Go to combat. Attack. You're at 1, correct?
I'm at 1.
Yeah,
And
I
he's-
have it on this.
There it is.
And he sees that he can now pay
I'm just
3
gonna-
to kill his
after I
own
attack,
Heartfire
yeah,
Hero.
And then I'll
And then go
target-
upstairs.
Take 2. Yep.
Yeah.
Wow, a nice win there to even things up there for Ian Robb. So he's now at 1-1 against Matt Nass as we head into the sideboarded games. And they managed to split one. Is that a win for Matt Nass there in game 1s, if you will?
Yeah, it's pretty close. I mean, this is, you know, I think the mono red deck has the better chance of breaking serve just because Matt Nass's deck is just full of a lot of expensive cards. So you can get a lot of clunky draws. So Matt's got to be happy that he was able to win game 1. But if you're on Ian's side of the, if you're on the Ian side, you were on the draw game 1 and you mulliganed to 5 and you still had a pretty decent start.
Yeah.
You kind of put him on the back foot here. So, you know, things still not looking that bad. The fact that he tied it up, and that's exactly what the mono red deck's looking to do. He just kind of had a normal draw, curved out, sequenced things beautifully. There's a lot of there was some interesting lines there. You could have just played all your creatures and just run into that temporary lockdown. But of course, we're at the top 8 of the Pro Tour. You know exactly what your opponents have, so you're going to try to play around things to the best of your ability. But great job, but a lot more Magic to be played.
That's right. We've got more top 8 quarterfinal action for you here from Chicago. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, game number 3. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to coverage here of Pro Tour Ether Drift. Marshall Cycliff with Paul Cheon. We're in the quarterfinals of the top 8 here on Sunday, and we just finished up our first 2 games. We have 2 players that took kind of exactly opposite approaches to the format. One of them's playing every color except for red, and one of them's only playing red.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, that's the great thing about this standard format. There's kind of a deck for everybody, and it all can perform well. We saw if you want to play a mid-range deck, you can play Esper Pixie. If you want to play kind of a control deck, this is the deck, the domain deck you can play. Or you know what? You want to beat down? Mono red is something you can pull off.
Now, Paul, for sideboards, those are in play now. We're past game 2. What would we be looking for from our players here as far as what they can change about their deck to help improve their matchup?
Yeah, so for Ian Robb, he is not messing around. 4 copies of Sunspine Lynx, which is specifically for this matchup. We're talking about a 4-mana 5/4. When it enters a battlefield, your opponent takes a bunch of damage, especially if they're the domain deck. Basically, every land is a non-basic land. And very, very importantly, it's got the static text, players can't gain life. That's one of Matt Nass's main win conditions against these aggressive matchups. Gets her in play, get something with lifelink onto the battlefield, and then attack. And not being able to gain the life could be absolutely huge here in kind of Ian making sure that Matt can't come back.
Ian starts things off with Monastery Swift Spear, but if we take a look at his hand, there is a Sunspine Lynx in there waiting for that 4th mountain to hit, and he's got 3 in hand, so that thing will be coming down this game. Take a look at it here. Damage can't be prevented, and players can't gain life, and it does a ton to them the turn it hits, too. Also, it's big. It's a 5/4.
Yeah, it's absolutely huge. If you ever just connect with this once, with the enter the battlefield effect, what are we looking at, 10 damage?
Could be.
Something like that?
Yeah, and as you mentioned, you know, the way that the game tends to play out is that Matt Nass is okay taking damage in the early stages. It's just a necessity here. But then he gets it all back in one fell swoop with huge life gain swings. And that's not going to be available to him here. No 2-drop, though, for Ian Robb.
Yeah, no, that is huge. Gives Matt Nass a little bit of a reprieve here. Still has the interesting option here of, what do I do? Do I play up the Beanstalk here? Could also go Overlord of the Hauntwoods. But at the same time, Ian Robb next turn didn't play something turn 2. So you have to kind of think there's a pretty good shot that he might have a Screaming Nemesis here to play on turn 3, which would get in for some damage. But Matt Nass setting up for the late game here, playing out that up the Beanstalk because that kind of unlocks the hand. Anything else now, basically, that he casts out of his hand will be able to draw him cards. He's got 2 Rides Ends and a Leyline Binding here.
He just got to get lost as well. This is interesting stuff. If you're in Matt Nass's seat, what are you thinking about this draw? Is it just a guaranteed Lynx on 4 since there was no Nemesis and no 2-drop?
No 2-drop, no 3-drop. This is 100% at least a Sunspine Lynx, at least 1 copy in Ian Robb's hand.
Lynx trigger, so I take 1, go to 19, you take 4, go to 15.
There it is.
I'll pass you.
It does hit each
I
player.
almost amount of speed every time he plays.
Yeah, but the issue here is Ian Robb didn't have a 2 and a 3-drop, right? So Matt Nass is still sitting at a pretty healthy life total. He was on the play here and has plenty of action in hand.
Yeah, he might be able to just win this one the fair way, right?
Exactly.
Like, normally his life total would be down, say, around 10 or a little bit below that. And then Ian Robb could finish him off. But sitting at 15, Ian has a lot of work to do. And by the way, Lynx down.
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason why the Lynx is powerful is it is your top-end threat that you play after you get your opponent down to something like 10 to 12 life. But when you play that as kind of your only other creature, you're just playing Matt Nass's game.
Right. This is a huge draw step here for Ian Robb because we see Zur hit the battlefield now for Nass. And if Ian doesn't do something to interact or prevent life, I don't see how he's going to come back.
This can be over very quickly. Might have to use Witchstalker Frenzy, on the Zur.
Here you go.
But Matt Nass has
but now all of
another
a sudden
Zur.
Mono Red is the control player?
Right, and Matt Nass has another Zur in hand.
Oh, okay.
So
I
this
don't
is
see how
probably
Ian
just
comes
over
back
right
from
here.
that. Yeah, 15's just way too much. He can get through the last couple of points through something, but 15 and all of a sudden he's going to be at 20 life. It's just not going to be a thing.
Exactly. Can possibly even activate the binding if you want to gain more life, but 5 seems totally fine here. Just activate your Overlord of the Hauntwoods. This might just lead to a concession right away. Oh, actually choosing to gain an extra point of life here by attacking with the Leyline Binding.
Yeah, gives up on an extra land, but whatever.
Yeah.
21 is the life total. And this is probably just going to be a concession here from Ian. I pick him up.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a top 8, so it's usually prudent to play him out, but it's hard to
You
imagine
have
no
no
way
way,
forward.
right? You just have no way to kill the Zur. If you can't, Matt's just going to gain even more life next turn.
Conjure. Cast Monstrous Rage, Sugar Prowess, and Valiant.
Okay. So 6 power, then you can play the Manifold Mouse to make it into a 6/3 double
Cast
striker.
Mouse.
It's a fair amount of damage. But remember, Matt
I mean,
Nass
this
has
is an impressive turn. It just
Yeah.
feels like it's too late.
Matt also has Elspeth's
top
Might,
for-
although I guess it doesn't kill it this turn.
6 and 12. Be 1200 double strike.
And Matt's like, fine, yeah, whatever, I'll take 12.
Yeah, that sounds fine.
Yeah. When you're playing mono red and your opponents, you
I'm at
like
9.
Yep. 13-9.
take 12 and they're like,
Yeah, sure, that's fine,
What's
whatever.
the worst thing that could happen?
I mean, Matt just has the win here, right? This
Got
is
Monster
this is
Blocker, animate these two.
yeah, this is just
Yeah,
the-
so he's just going to show him, I'm
6,
going to
11,
remove your last
13.
blocker,
Yep.
and I'm going to get in for 6 plus 5 plus 2, and that's going to be it for game number 3. Matt Nass, he's got to breathe a huge sigh of relief that turn 2 and turn 3, just nothing happened on the
yeah,
other side.
that is
I mean,
that is
huge.
tremendous here. Now, and here it's just so far, right? Every player on the play has gone first, and Matt Nass locking up that first seed, proving to be very, very valuable here.
He is 1 game away from advancing to the semifinals. Ian Robb has the unenviable position of having to win the next 2 or he's out.
And Ian did mulligan, but a nice solid start here. 1 drop into Emberheart Challenger into Monstrous Rage.
Good.
But Matt kept the 7 with,
Draw.
hey, you got a 2-mana removal spell there in the Rides End
Mouse.
into a lockdown turn
Combat,
3.
targets, Trigger. Give a double strike.
Yeah.
Attack.
This is more what he needed to see in the first game.
Manifold Mouse off the top. That is
That's
huge.
That is clean living there for Ian Robb, and
I
he
would have been a little
smiles.
mad if this happens.
So good morning, second chance with the leader. My name is Davide. I will be your
So yeah, Matt Nass does have the Rides End. Probably one of the most important cards in the matchup. Not too many other cheap ways to interact with the mono red deck, right, until you get to turn 3. Big turn here, though. Again, Ian Robb does have to consider the fact that Matt Nass could have a temporary lockdown. Can he afford to play around it? Or does he have enough on the battlefield to kind of force actions out of Matt Nass?
Yeah, these are where matches are won or lost, right? Making those decisions between can I afford to play around it, must I play around it, or must I not?
And Matt kind of has, again, this is kind of the perfect hand you can sculpt here for Matt Nass outside of having a turn 1 Elspeth Smite as well, but just being able to exile this Hardfire hero and then being able to follow that up with a temporary lockdown, and then Ian's just top decking. We're looking at a hand with, if he runs out the Challenger this turn, that is, then he just is looking at a hand with Monstrous Rage.
Yeah, the question is the board that he has right now enough to put a dent in the life total of Matt Nass
Yeah, it's like,
so that it can kind of absorb the potential for a temporary lockdown and then recover after? And
Right.
it feels like it's just a little short, maybe?
yeah, now the question is, where do you double strike?
Yeah.
Right? If you think he has a Rides End, do you just double strike your
The
Manifold
Manifold
Mouse?
Ugh.
Just to make sure that you can get some damage in. You're sacrificing a good deal of damage by doing that, but you're spreading it around just to make sure that you can get the damage if you think Matt Nass has Rides End here.
Very difficult position for Ian Robb. I mean, we're talking about playing around a removal spell now, plus a potential sweeper either next turn or the turn after.
Yeah.
Where did he give the double strike?
He gave it to the mouse, or excuse me, the Hardfire hero.
Oh,
So
he did. So he actually only gets in for a little bit there. Just 1 damage.
yeah, and that is really, really big. Now, curious for Matt Nass, like, do you run out the lockdown here? Are you too concerned about this, or
Does he have untapped white or untapped land here?
he does? There's a Hushwood. There's 2 Hushwood Verges.
Hushwood
in
Verges.
hand.
Okay. So would you be content? No, not
Okay.
content. You may have
All
your
right.
1 powered currently.
Does
creature.
Ian now? Does Ian have lethal? You just have to kind of add it up here. Emberheart Challenger plus Monstrous Rage is 6 damage, plus Double Strike is 12 damage. So this is 13 damage total, and if he hits like a pump spell or a burn spell, that can just win the
could
game
do it.
here.
Oh, it was a mountain.
Oh, he didn't, but this will get Matt Nass down to 2 life.
Jeez, he gave him
Back to
one
Jake.
turn. He
1, 2,
passed with 1
3, 4,
power,
5, 6,
and he's
12,
going to
13.
take 13?
Yep.
So now with the Rock Face Village in play too, Matt Nass has to stabilize, might have to just run out of temporary lockdown, and
cross his fingers.
if Ian Robb just drops a burst
that was an
lightning,
obstinate Baloth off the top.
I think you're.
Is it too late?
Oh, and there's a Ember Heart Challenger here in Ian Robb's hand, but remember Matt.
Update.
Excuse me, he doesn't. Never mind. But Matt Nass can go temporary lockdown, get the creatures off the battlefield, still has the mana up for Leyline Binding. So
Oh,
any
that's
haste creature off the
huge.
top wouldn't get it done.
Can he cast the binding? Yeah, he has an everywhere. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah. So whenever you get Overlord of Huntwoods in play on turn 3,
Yeah.
Leyline Binding automatically just becomes a 1 mana removal
just
spell.
wanted to double check. Well, that's a great insurance plan for him. I mean, it doesn't prevent, from burst lightning or something, but there's nothing he can do there, right?
Yeah, there Burst Lightning, Sunspine Links, there's a ton of great draws here. This is kind of what you want to be doing as the mono red player. Get your opponent down low enough where basically every top deck is live to basically win you the game.
Oh, this is the fun part, no doubt about it. Nothing set in stone at this point.
Now remember, this Ember Heart Challenger already has Trample. So we're talking about a trampling potential double striker here with that Manifold Mouse in play. There's also a Rock Face Village, which threatens a ton of damage. So you want to get that Challenger off the battlefield no matter what. I think if you just play the Baloth, you might just lose, right? Just because you go up to 6, but then we're talking about a 4-power double striking Trampler that just eats the Baloth.
Now, does he have the mana for Obstinate Baloth plus Leyline Binding?
I guess he hasn't played a land yet.
No?
He's been really
So
thinking about this turn. So if you go Baloth into Binding, that plays around a lot of different cards that Ian can have. We'll see what he does
yeah,
here,
even
though.
the Lynx wouldn't kill him at that point.
Yep.
Okay, he's going to go for temporary lockdown, though.
tap.
All right. Burn Spell, Sunspine Links.
He said he can make it easy on himself, just find a burn spell. No, he plays the land and passes the turn back.
Okay, nothing but
It
Matt,
was a land.
yeah, and Matt Nass has the Baloth here. You can just run it out, go up to 6.
Oh, that's a huge sigh of relief for Matt Nass.
Now, if you're Matt, do you play out another land? Because you're at
Oh, yeah,
6,
because
right?
that actually does put you dead to a Lynx, doesn't
because,
it?
right, because a Lynx off the top, if you play the land, that's exactly 6 damage. What does Matt do here?
I'll play this.
How
He
plays
is
it
going to
out.
play it.
So a Lynx off the top here,
Lynx would do it,
and Ian can tie it up.
but his outs went from many, many to quite a few.
Right. Man, Matt's got an Leyline Binding and a nice creature here just to block any
Yeah.
random creature off the top. But hey, you play 4 of the Lynx for a reason. Most decks play maybe 2, maybe 3.
I'll
So-
know.
So if you're in Matt's seat, it's just about Zur now.
Here you go.
Oh,
Another
my
land for
gosh.
Ian Robb. How does he keep missing?
That's 8 lands in play here for Ian Robb. Now, Matt doesn't have lethal here, right? So Ian does have a couple of draw steps here without the Zur at finding a Lynx.
Matt found Day of Judgment. Not going to do much for him here. Is there a Lynx on top?
Here you go.
No,
Oh,
it's
no.
another land. 3 lands in a row for Ian Robb. That is heartbreak.
And what's Ian's life total? He can't be at 20, right?
16.
16. Yeah, that would make sense. And
But
this
not
is
now.
not lethal.
He's going to go down to 2 here.
You didn't get
Oh, but there's
sorry.
another Baloth, which
yeah,
means that the Lynx wouldn't be enough, right?
That is
4,
not
5, 6,
enough.
7. Yeah. So no outs here for Ian Robb, and Matt Nass defeats him and is going to move on to the semifinal. Oh, you got a feel for Ian there, though. Land at a point where, I don't know, a third of his deck would have won the game, and then, okay, admittedly a much smaller, 4 outs or whatever, but oh, that's tough.
Yeah, well, this just often happens when you are kind of playing the mono red aggro deck. You kind of get your opponent low, and then you just kind of leave it to the top of your deck, right? You can get your opponent low, and there have been so many instances. We've just seen this over the last 25 years of Magic. The mono red deck needs to find a lightning strike, a lightning helix, a lightning bolt, something like that off the top. Ian, however, just mountains. wasn't able to get it done. Matt Nass must be breathing a huge sigh of relief here. Possibly one of his worst matchups in the top 8, and he gets to go on into the semis.
Yeah, he sidesteps the threat of Mono Red and makes his way into the semifinals. He came in as the #1 seed, and he'll continue on through the tournament. He also gets to be on play as a result, which is a pretty nice thing to have as well. And, by the way, we've got Riley with Matt Nass right now.
I'm here with Matt Nass, who has won his quarterfinal. Matt, congratulations. Heading into this match, probably the underdog in this matchup. What were your thoughts heading into playing against such an aggressive deck?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, definitely a tough matchup. I think the mono red, especially with 4 links, is tougher even than Gruul, which is already like a slight underdog. So the good news was because of the 1 seed, I did have the play, so that helped quite a bit. I might have lost game 1 or some of the other games I won if I was on the draw. And then other than that, yeah, I just had to hope that he had bad draws, and he did. He mulliganed a bunch, drew a bunch of lands at convenient times for me, and that was the difference.
Well, you got there in the end, but I want to zoom out now and look at the top 8 more broadly. We were talking off camera about some of the matchups you're hoping for, and unusually, you're kind of hoping to have to play a couple of mirrors.
Yeah, so in the Swiss, we actually didn't want to get paired in a domain mirror because there's a big risk of a draw. But here, it's an untimed event. I think I have a decent sideboard for the matchup, and the alternative is Gruul with Leyline, which is somehow even faster and more aggressive than Mono Red. So I'd much prefer to play a mirror. And although, again, because the other bracket is Gruul versus Leyline, or Gruul Leyline versus Domain, I'm not that optimistic that I'll get a domain matchup, but I would take it.
All right, well, we'll see how it goes. But I want to ask you as well, your experience coming into this top 8, you're probably one of the more experienced players, well, in this tournament more broadly, but definitely in this top 8. How much of an advantage do you think that gives you in a top 8 like this, being one of the veteran players?
Yeah, I think it's definitely something. I think I'm probably likely to feel a little less nerves. I definitely felt more nerves at my first top 8 in Hawaii than I have at this one. So I do think there's something there, but at the end of the day, we're all good players playing Magic, and, you know, I think most people will play pretty well, and it'll just come down to those small decisions and how the cards drop.
Well, you've certainly made good decisions so far. Congratulations on the win, Matt Nass. Good luck in the semi-finals.
Thank you.
All right, 1 quarterfinal in the books, but we've got more to bring you. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll be back at the news desk to set up our next quarterfinal match. Don't go anywhere.